Okay, so I just want to show you a special part of the quadratic formula. It's called the discriminant, and it's this part right here underneath the square root, which is the part we do first. So that's what we call the discriminant. You're going to see that vocab word probably on the ACT, and you'll see it a little bit in this course also. And what this part does is tells us about the roots, and the reason is because when we take square roots, that tells us if we have real solutions or imaginary solutions. So we kind of already looked at an example of that, but I just want to give you a recap to put in your notes so you can see how, like, the difference that it makes. So if we take the square root of a positive number, that's going to give us an answer. So I'm just going to give you a quick little example. Let's say that you have 2 plus the square root of 9. That's positive all over 3. I don't know, I'm making up numbers. All right, that's going to give you two cases. 2 plus 3 over 3, and this should be minus, and 2 minus, right? So because that gives you those two cases, and I'll write them separately, that means that you're going to have two solutions. So the square root of a positive number means that you're going to have two real solutions. And that means that your graph, just to bring this all back together, is going to cross the x-axis in two different points. Now, if we're working a problem out and we're doing the square root of 0, that means we're going to have some number plus or minus the square root of 0 over some other number. When you take the square root of 0, it just equals 0. So when you break your two cases apart, you're going to have 2 plus 0, or whatever the number is, and you're going to have something minus 0. And whether you add or subtract 0, you're going to get the same answer both times, right? So this is an example of that one real solution, or the double root scenario, which is going to look like the parabola that just hits the x-axis in one spot, because it's only going to have one. The other reason for that, I just want to show you because it might come up later, is because remember negative b over 2a, remember how this part is the axis of symmetry for the parabola? It should make sense that the vertex would be on that axis of symmetry because you're not going either direction to find your two roots. Okay, so the last one is if you take the square root of a negative, and we talked about this earlier. When you take the square root of a negative number, that means you're going to have I somewhere in your answer, which is going to give you, right, imaginary. So because that's the case, taking the square root of a negative number is going to give you two imaginary solutions. And so when you look at the graph, then this one won't cross the x-axis at all because they're imaginary, right? There's not a real place that it crosses. So that's what I want you to have in your notes, just knowing the difference. One, what discriminant means, and two, how to use the value of the discriminant to determine what type of solution you're going to have.